Hello, everybody. This is Vaughn Cockayne, web editor of the BG News, and this is Journalism in the Movies. I'm here joined today for our first episode with Maxwell Marko. Hi, Max.
Hi. How's it going?
Good. Happy to be here?
Yes. Excited.
Okay.
I watched the movie that we were going to talk about last night.
For the second time recently.
This, in the past, maybe a couple of months. This is probably around the third time I've watched it.
Okay.
It's a good movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely watchable.
There's not that much else to watch on Netflix.
That's true. There's not, other than The Irishman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If only that was a journalism movie.
If only. If only we could make it one.
Yeah, Scorsese's got to make one of those.
All right, so keeping out of suspense, the first episode today that we're going to be talking about in the first movie is Zodiac. And because it's the first episode, I think I should probably try to explain what the show is about. I took the idea from a Kathy Bradshaw course I took, I think, freshman year, and around 2016 or 2017, where we would watch movies that were surrounding journalism or journalistic ideas. We would discuss ethical implications, moral implications, and things like that surrounding the world of journalism in fictional media, or media that was depicting real-life scenarios, like the one that we're going to talk about today. And I picked Zodiac for the first episode, firstly because both Max and I had seen it recently, but also because I think I didn't watch it in that course, and I think it's a good movie that isn't talked about much when it comes to journalism. And something that I found out was when David Fincher made the movie, apparently one of his inspirations for the movie and his rule books was All the President's Men. And now that I watch it again, that actually makes perfect sense, because it feels very tense all the time.
And a perfect example is when Avery goes to meet I don't think they ever say
they never see who he meets,
but it's very deep
throaty. Yes,
it's a dark garage or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think they show them actually meeting. They just show him going through the fence, and then he shows up later at the handwriting expert's office. But anyway, I think we'll start with just general opinions about the movie, and then we'll kind of get into more specifics about what the movie's about, and then we'll go into more journalism stuff. So for those of you that don't know, the Zodiac Killer was a serial killer who was never found officially in California, and specifically in San Francisco from 1969 to the early 70s. There are only a few confirmed cases, and in the 1970s he wrote letters to the San Francisco Chronicle, and the story in the movie takes place from 1969 to 1991, following a few different characters, namely Paul Avery, David Tachi, and Robert Graysmith, who wrote the book that the film is based on, Zodiac, published I don't know when, I think in the early 90s or the late 80s, called Zodiac, about him. And Robert Graysmith was originally a cartoonist for the San Francisco Chronicle, but quit to obsessively write a novelization of his own story surrounding the Zodiac. So, Max, you like this movie?
Yeah, I think it's a good movie. It's a good suspenseful movie where what it does a good job of is kind of you already know what the outcome is because it is, but it still does a good job of trying to keep you in suspense of what is going to happen. Another thing I kind of liked about it from a cinematography standpoint was I felt there were many different scenes that just seemed shot completely different than the rest of the movie. The one that sticks out was when Tashi and his partner go to the scene after the Zodiac Killer kills the cab driver.
Right, in the car?
Yeah. In the car, and then they get out, and it's all, you can tell it's all handheld, because it's very, kind of shaky, but it reminds you of, kind of a Law and Order type situation. And it's you don't see that kind of work in the movie again until, I don't think, at all.
Yeah, maybe not ever.
But it does, it's classic, Fincher pans and stuff like that.
It's really smooth. I think that he doesn't ever really use anything. He doesn't really ever use handheld.
He's a big track guy.
Yeah, he's a big tracking guy. I think there's one shot in The Social Network at the party with Justin Timberlake when he gets caught. I think we can talk about David Fincher as what other Fincher movies that you like. I think I like every one of his movies. I think this is probably my third favorite, probably behind Seven and The Social Network.
I would say I would have probably the same order actually. I would
Really?
maybe argue towards like the Social Network just because I like Sorkin a lot and I just like the dialogue in it. But 7 was a fantastic movie. So I would probably be a combination of either 7 Social Network Zodiac or Social Network 7 Zodiac.
Yeah, I think that this is probably just the best extent because this is after 7. I think this is probably just the best extension of it because it's almost 3 hours. It's the most detailed procedural cop movie, even though it's not necessarily just a cop movie.
Yeah,
that one of the most detailed I've ever seen. And 7 is almost the same way. It's just much less scary, and that's something I also want to talk about. Is like how it's very scary. And like, there's just scenes in this movie specifically that I think are terrifying. I'm thinking of the
opening scene.
The opening is scary. Yeah. When in the first or the second, technically the second official or suspected Zodiac murder happens on July 4th, 1969, in Vallejo. And it's 2 teenagers that were murdered. Teenagers, right?
One of them was murdered.
One of them is murdered. And then the man survives, which is kind of a common theme. It happens at least twice in the movie where a couple is killed or a couple is attempted to be murdered by the Zodiac, but only the male survives. And in this case, the male in the Vallejo case ends up being instrumental at the end of the film. That his story bookends the film at the end when he identifies one of the main suspects, Arthur Lee Allen. I suppose that we should say at this point that if you haven't seen Zodiac, there will be spoilers.
Yeah, we probably should have started this.
Probably should have started it with that, but at the same time, the movie's been out for a very long time, and the
you
Zodiac
haven't seen it yet. Go see it.
And the Zodiac has been out for even longer. So if you don't know anything about this movie, yes. But even if you get yourself spoiled in this, it's honestly still very fun to watch. Sure. So let's start, I guess, with talking about all the scary parts that happen in the movie, because I think there's a lot.
Yeah.
The part in the film that I think stands out to me the most as the scariest is the talk show scene when the Zodiac killer, with air quotes, calls into the talk show to talk to the lawyer. I forget his name.
Melvin Belli.
And I don't know what it is. I think it's the scream.
Probably the scream. You can it's just the depiction of like madness and that you don't hear because the movie features various phone calls that the Zodiac makes to police stations and whatnot, but none of them sound remotely like the one that is made to the television show where it's like obviously air quotes Zodiac is like very distraught and like watching the movie for the first time I was like, oh, that sounds like an insane person, and then after they wrap everything up it's like, oh yeah, they traced the call and it was
some person
from a mental institution.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was just very unnerving, and just the way the other thing that's like not necessarily scary but just like uneasy about it is that like how everybody else is like super calm, like the lawyer especially is like super calm about it.
Yeah, and then later when he gets a bloody rag and a letter from Zodiac, he's extremely calm.
Yeah.
I think that scene specifically, I don't know if this is intentional or not, but there's like they use different voices for the supposed Zodiac. Because I don't know if in the scene in the Napa Valley killing scene near a lake when the Zodiac murders a woman and attempts to murder her partner by a lake in Napa Valley, and he wears the famous Zodiac garb, which I've sketched on my notebook here. He wears the famous black outfit. I don't know if I forget who the actor who plays Arthur Lee Allen. I forget his name. But I don't know if it's his voice or not. It sounds like it is his voice, and it looks like him.
Yeah.
And the same goes for the man in the car who throws the woman and the baby out of the car in the early 70s on March 22nd, 1970. I don't know if it's that voice, but it sounds very different. So I don't know if that's intentional, but either way... I
mean, it might be, too, because there's the whole theme later where they go into how, like, Zodiac is, like, very famous for reading in every newspaper. And the whole thing was, like, with the kidnapping with the mom and her baby was, like, he didn't give any other details besides the details that were given in, like, the Sacramento Bee or whatever.
Yeah.
So
that could not have even been Zodiac.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the point being, one of the major things in the movie is doubt, because I mean it's impossible. Because I mean, even Arthur Lee Allen, which is the suspect, I think is probably the best choice you could make. Even then, there's at least twice the handwriting doesn't make any sense. It doesn't match up. The print doesn't make any sense. There's unanswered questions throughout the whole thing, and the doubt that is there, I think, is just like giving the person who plays the Zodiac in different reenactments of the murders be played by a different person or use different voices just adds to that. Like, I really don't know. At the end of the day, you really don't know.
No. And the second last scene is even just super ominous too, where it's Robert Graysmith walks into
the hardware store.
And Arthur Lee Allen works there, and he turns around, and he doesn't. I think he maybe just says like, "Can I help you?" And
he says no.
He says no, but they just like stare at each other for a good 15 seconds, and then.
I think I don't know. I read that scene differently every time I see it.
Yeah, because the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, like my first reaction was clear, like, oh, like he recognizes Robert Graysmith. And
okay.
He's like, oh, no, I've been had.
Yeah, right.
Just because his his face turns very stern.
Yeah, very weird. Yeah,
and kind of Robert Graysmith just turns around and leaves.
I think I was like, last time I saw it, I was like, because originally when I saw the film and I saw that scene, I didn't think about what Arthur Lee Allen was thinking, because I don't think that he would have. I don't know, but like in my mind, I was like, he went there. Robert Graysmith went there to just make sure that like the feeling of seeing Arthur Lee Allen was there as the Zodiac. Like that was, and then he was sure. First time I saw it, I was like, he saw him and he was sure, and he's resolved in knowing that it's Arthur Lee Allen. And then I watched it again, and his face is like completely different now. It seems different to me now. Like that idea of like he still doesn't really know.
No.
And like that's kind of what's
that's
scary.
The whole point of the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what just makes it a great. It's literally just like the unnerving, the doubt. Just everything is like you watch it again and you look for things that are completely different.
Yeah.
And it's, it does have some funny parts in there too, which is nice. The whole, I don't know, I'm guessing Mark Ruffalo talked to Tashi about animal crackers or something like that. But he has a fast. It doesn't come up again. It's only for a
it's
couple
every
of
time
scenes.
he's in the car. Like
with his original partner.
No, and then he gets the new partner, and he's like, "Do you happen to have any animal crackers in there?" He's like, "What are you talking about?
What the heck are you talking about?"
I remember, and then his partner's like, "You ever try Japanese food?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "What are you talking?" That whole scene is bizarre.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the Bob Vaughn scene? My relative.
Yes.
And how bizarre that is.
Yeah, but because it's like my bone to pick with it is obviously he's like, no, I wrote those, that's my, but they never go into Rick Marshall at all.
Never go to Rick Marshall at all, which is weird because
everything else
besides the handwriting matches up, which is the same thing with Arthur Lee Allen. But all the evidence, anyway, for those of you that don't know, the main squab with the vast majority of the film is physical evidence, i.e. bloody shirts, fingerprints, and handwriting specifically. And because, of course, the Zodiac wrote handwritten letters to the San Francisco Chronicle, and none of the suspects match up with the handwriting. But there's a piece of evidence later in the film about Arthur Lee Allen being ambidextrous that becomes much bigger later. But there's an almost direct match with the handwriting with the Zodiac on movie posters. And Rick Marshall, who was one of the favorite suspects of Vallejo detectives, was a friend of Bob Vaughn at a movie theater, and it was supposed that Rick Marshall drew movie posters, but it turns out it was actually Bob Vaughn that drew the movie posters. And this is what leads Graysmith to decide in the moment that he's in danger when he's in Bob Vaughn's basement.
Yeah.
Which is another famous scene because, of course, not many people have basements in California. I do. Yeah.
Just the way, out of all of the suspects, the actors that play the suspects, I think he does the best.
Terrifying.
Does the best job of just being casually
scary.
Yeah. Arthur Lee Allen, is his whole thing is just he's a big dude, and he, but he's like an old man, the guy who plays Vaughn, is like, he's just an old man. You can clearly tell he's wearing a toupee. And he's like, everything about him is just like not right. And like, the thing about like Rick Marshall too is like, again, everything else about Rick Marshall adds up, but it's just like being in the same room as somebody and them saying, no, that's my handwriting, because the whole movie is literally is just like, okay, we have to match this handwriting, and somebody flat out admits like, yeah, that's my handwriting. And what helps is before Graysmith goes to Vaughn, he goes to the handwriting expert, and he was like, oh yeah, this is the closest I've ever seen it. Yeah. And then he goes to Vaughn, and like, he's just like, no,
he
like,
freaks out.
That's my handwriting. Yeah. Do you want to come down to my basement?
Yeah. I think that your squabble with it actually makes sense to me now, because it really doesn't go anywhere beyond that. I guess because after that, what happens after that is that, right, he finds his wife gives him the documents, right? Yeah. And he's like, and he finds Arthur Lee Allen's signature on his birthday. Yeah. And then from there, I guess he just concludes that it has to be him. Yeah. Because everything leads to it being him, and he knew.
He knew the birthday.
Victim. Yeah. But he knew his birthday because he called. What's his name?
He called
Belli saying that it was his birthday. Yeah. But I think the weird thing was that the most important thing for me in believing that it's Allen is that he knew the first victim, and he like went to her house, and then her sister in jail said that he knew him. So I don't. To me, that is like the most damning evidence. That and the fact that like he had the Zodiac watch. Yeah. He was in prison. That scene. That scene in the diner.
The thing that's like the most damning to me is like, it's not just any one piece of evidence. It's all of the things against Arthur Lee Allen combined. Is what, because it's like, it's the watch. It's the timeline of receiving the Zodiac letters. Yeah. After they have happened, and then like
he was in jail.
They didn't get anything. Yeah. And it says in the credits after the movie, it says after he dies, they didn't receive anything. It was just, like everything combined with Arthur Lee Allen. Yeah. Just like you would think, like common sense, like that's like the prime suspect.
Right. But
it's all about physical evidence.
Yeah. There's no it's all circumstantial evidence, really. And honestly, like I think we should probably talk about this a little bit. It's a frustrating movie. Yeah. Because that scene in the diner at the end when Tashi and Graysmith are talking, it's the most like irritating thing in the world. And then especially with the ending credits,
like where you just want somebody to like say, yes, it's Arthur Lee Allen.
Exactly. And even you want somebody to be
even if it's not like even if it's just Tashi being like.
Yeah, yes, but even then he's like, I'm not asking you as a cop, and he's like, I am a cop. Yeah, and he's like, I can't prove this.
A little bit of a Departed scene there.
Yeah, not a cop. Yeah, so I think from there we can transition pretty smoothly into one of the big points of the movie beyond the doubt, and that's the weird that the scariest thing in the movie is not the Zodiac but time. And there's a great line from Tashi in the movie when he talks about how when Graysmith confronts him outside the courthouse, and he's like, Tashi says something like, people get old and they forget. He's like, we've had 200 murders in San Francisco since the last Zodiac note, and it's a lot of grieving families. And it's perfect because, honestly, it makes perfect sense. And beyond that, the other scary thing is the fact that if you really... Like, Graysmith was completely right in his, like, message for the book, which was if you put everything together, maybe it starts to make sense. Because there were things that Graysmith found out that were known by other police departments, right? Yeah. So, like, the working together of police departments just did not, it failed. Yeah. It failed. The communication between...
And there's a really, like, this perfect scene for that is when Tashi's partner... is on the phone with like two different police departments. Yeah. And there's like, we don't have a fax. I was like, oh, okay, well, we'll just mail them to you. And he's like, no, you have to mail them to this other police department. It's just whole miscommunication.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, and then it's just like, thinking about that, it's like, oh, okay, like, what if this happened, now? It would just be like, oh, yeah, let me just email you that real quick.
Yeah, it would be a lot better, I guess, in general.
And you know what? I was thinking, too, while I was watching, like, I watched that, and then I was like, what if this did happen today? Where it was like, I don't even think, you wouldn't mail something to a newspaper to tell them to print it on the front page. You literally would just like go on Twitter,
post it,
which would be crazy because there would be no hand.
No,
but it'd be a lot easier to probably track down, obviously. Yeah. But it'd just be interesting because even like the Melvin Belli thing, it's just like it'd be interesting to see how like different like news personalities would be targeted from it. You know, like the whole like I'm not Avery buttons and everything like that. You wouldn't be able to have those because most likely everybody would know in the area. Everybody would know what Paul Avery looks like. It'd just be very
different. Yeah. No, I think it's the same thing with something like the Unabomber, for example, where it's like his big thing was like getting his manifesto in the paper, whereas like you just would put it out there.
Yeah,
it wouldn't matter anymore, I guess would be the point.
Honestly, more people would probably see it if you
just put it on social media. Yeah, exactly. But I think that weird disconnect with communication is probably the reason more people died. And I love that. I love when he's finally when Graysmith is finally trying to write the book. And he's talking to Tashi, and he's like, "That's not my case. I don't know anything about that."
Yeah.
He's like, he has to just like go around to different places because not everybody knows everything.
Yeah.
But nobody knows like everything.
Yeah. And then part of Avery has a nice comment too about like the whole time thing where he's like, "We work in the daily business."
Yeah, that was perfect. He's like, "Did you forget that we worked in the daily business?" And it's like everything's been just forgotten.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, like that's like the biggest. Obviously, that's like the biggest thing against any subject is literally just like people don't care the next day.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's I guess the nature of news, and that's a good segue, I guess, because I wanted to talk about first the ethics of publishing like the work of a killer, because the discussion really is only just a little bit about that in the beginning when they first get the letter, because it's one of the first things that happens in the movie. They get the letter, the Chronicle gets the letter, and it's not one of the editors says we shouldn't be publishing the works of a killer, and then the rest of them are like, but the Times is going with it front page.
Yeah,
but the Times is going with it on the front page.
It's
what do we do?
Like having conversations with each different paper, and it's like, the B's going with it, but they're going with it on page 4.
Fourth page. It's like I say we go first page.
Yeah, and it's literally like. Why are you not contacting the police right away?
Exactly.
If you get a letter from a serial killer, why are you even thinking about publishing at all?
Numbers, and then one of the other things is, it's not really like about public interest. It's about like a scoop for one. Yeah. And one of the other things when he sends the letter about taking out a school bus. Yeah. That I thought was interesting when they say, we don't want to start a panic. And it's like, but also, I mean, if an actual serial killer was making a credible threat to, like, buses, as a parent, I would want to know that. Yeah. They don't release it.
Yeah. It's kind of leaked or whatever. But, I feel like the best way to probably go about that. Obviously, they do contact. I think they do. That's like the first time I think that they contact the police department. It's either that or when they get the first.
Well, the police get a letter. They get the first letter. They all both like the police and all the papers get the same letter, but they don't like work with them until they get the second letter, which is the bus one.
Yes. Yeah. And at that point, it's just like, okay, well, why are you not just like, why are you not like just putting out like an official statement? Like the police department is not just putting out an official statement being like a credible threat was made towards the Department of Transportation. Yeah. We are shutting down all bus services.
Yeah, because that scene after they get the letter and then Graysmith is watching his son get on the bus. Yeah. It's like that's exactly what every parent would do.
Oh, yeah.
They would take their son off the bus.
The idea that there are any buses after that threat is like, why are you running any buses at all?
Exactly. So I just remember that being, and like just the we don't want to start a panic is like the strangest justification for me because like.
No, like it's only a panic if you don't.
Yeah, honestly, yes.
If you don't say anything, then you have a threat of a panic.
Yeah. And then I love on the thread of like journalistic business, I remember when Avery and Graysmith have their first like drunken meeting, and they go to a bar for the first time together.
Yeah.
And Avery asks him what's in it for you? Everybody out of this gets something business wise, but you. And he's like, what do you mean by business?
Yeah.
And I think like more often than not, it's just that Graysmith is a boy. I think that more often that I watch this, I should just research who Graysmith was.
Yeah.
Because I have a problem believing that it's accurate.
Yeah.
About him as a personality.
Yeah.
I believe that he was obsessed with Zodiac, but I don't believe that he was like a Boy Scout.
No.
Eagle Scout. Actually.
I can't imagine like that was like his whole like crutch behind like getting behind like trying to solve everything. He's like, oh, as an Eagle Scout, I know how to crack codes and stuff like that.
And he's completely
But I
innocent.
could totally fall for somebody working at the Chronicle at the time of the Zodiac, just being in the moment with it and just being completely caught up in it.
Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah, I don't necessarily buy the borderline personality kind of little bit autistic kind of person that he is in the movie because I mean that's how he acts.
Too is like if he was so great, like if he was such a great Boy Scout, then why is some like mom and pop or whatever solving the first code? And then like
that's something interesting also about the movie where. Graysmith really isn't the main character for a long time.
No, yeah.
Avery and...
Not until the third act.
Avery and Tashi are kind of more of the main characters for the first half of the movie than Graysmith is. Graysmith is kind of just like... He doesn't crack a code, actually, until the end, which is something weird, because I thought he would have. Or I remember he does earlier, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't crack one until the end when he's writing the book. But yeah, I think journalistically, I think the ethics of publishing something like that are strange.
Yeah.
Because
even like they print the cipher too.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I get wanting to. I don't know.
But it goes to the FBI also.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems weird. Kind of just like just literally just falling to every demand of a serial killer. Be like, okay, we'll do this,
and it doesn't stop anything. That's the strange thing.
Yeah.
Is after you publish the letter, and then he still kills more people,
and then you do it again.
Why do you do it again?
Yeah,
because he's still going to do it.
Yeah, and the other thing that was really funny too that I don't think you would ever see today was it was just a brief moment. Oh, it was like when the couple were solving the puzzle. It was like I don't know what paper she had, but it had like all three ciphers that were sent to each paper, and above each cipher it said like to Vallejo, to whatever, to the Chronicle, to the Sacramento Bee. I don't think it would be,
no.
There are such huge egos.
Yeah, that would never happen today.
They would never be. No. Oh no.
Print, no. It would be an individual ciphers for you to buy that paper. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's just funny how that would work. The collaboration would never happen like that today.
Yeah, it's true. I guess I would probably how do I justify talking about this movie over something that's more explicitly journalistic? Because at the end of the day,
I think there's still some really big journalism ethic questions that could be looked at. Like the one that's most common too is like I think the most common theme that I see when it comes to journalism movies is the whole idea of like on the record, off the record.
Right.
Like at no point does Avery ever tell Tashi like, oh, this is on the record, this is off the record. It's literally every time it's Tashi going, that was not for publication, and this is off the record. When really, he doesn't really have the authority to decide what is on the off the record.
But oh god, I guess we should talk about Tashi and Avery's relationship in the movie, because it's kind of big for the first half.
Yeah.
Until he just becomes, which also I found out in research that side note, Avery becomes an alcoholic in the movie and becomes a reclusive. Apparently, that's just straight not true.
Yeah,
apparently
I would believe that if that wasn't
apparently
true.
He just retired, wrote a book, and then was happy with the family.
Yeah,
which is very
it's literally the exact opposite of Graysmith. Was like he just forgot about it, and then Graysmith was like just completely ruined his life.
Yeah, which I think could have been actually probably better as like a strange contrast, because it still is a contrast, but just both of them are kind of miserable. Yeah, because Avery is
just one is more miserable than the other.
Yeah,
when in reality it's the other way around, where you could argue Graysmith was probably more miserable than Avery.
Yeah, at the end, his second wife divorced him. And the book happened. It was a great success, but and he spent his entire life endangering his family to get this serial killer book.
Yeah, I like it's like very strange. Like the relationship that he has with his first son, I think, in like the first half of the movie, and then like he just like doesn't care about his children anymore.
Yeah, and then he uses his children for research on the serial killer. I think that's something else, which again could also just not be true. About how much he endangered his family. But again, that's something ethically, journalistically, because he's doing journalism and he's writing the book.
Yeah.
When he's writing that, I think that's what that is. It's probably the best example of it in the movie, the most in-depth example of it in the movie, even if it's kind of like police work in a way. But journalism can kind of be like that with interviews. But that's the other like ethical question, I think, with like, you know, talking about how much you endanger yourself and the people around you by doing the work that you do. And there's ways that you can get around it, like not going on television and bragging about how easily you crack the code.
Yeah. And you know, not Paul, like there's sprinkles of it too, because like Paul Avery, I don't know in what what I should have done was I wanted to, but I totally forgot about it until like this morning. Is I should have went back and like read the articles and clippings from when the Zodiac was happening, because I don't know what context Paul Avery, a crime beat reporter, is calling the Zodiac a latent homosexual.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know why.
Maybe he got that from somewhere, or like
maybe, don't know.
But yeah, but
it's brought up later because he's like, you did call him a latent homosexual, and it's like,
which is why which is I guess used as like that's why he's going after you. Yeah. I think also something I'm just now thinking about is maybe well, first of all, you know, Graysmith is not a journalist. He's not trained as a journalist.
No,
he's a cartoonist. But what he learns journalism from is Paul Avery.
Yeah.
So that makes, I mean, now that I think about it, it makes perfect sense that he like endangers himself and his family, because it's exactly what Paul did.
Yeah.
Because he goes off and to meet a confidential informant in the middle of the night, you know, not knowing anything about them, like 2 hours away.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes perfect sense to me now, like thinking about it, that, you know, he doesn't.
Yeah, and like Avery, or I should say, Graysmith doesn't think twice about it at all until he's having dinner with his soon-to-be second wife, and she's like, "That's a little stupid," and he's like, "Oh yeah,
that's dangerous.
Duh,
yeah,
that's dumb." And you know, he does basically the exact same thing. Even when he goes to meet Vaughn,
yes,
it's like
he goes by himself.
He goes by himself, pouring rain, you know, in the middle of the night.
Yeah,
obviously that might not have happened, but you know, for cinematic purposes.
Yeah, but if you just talk about the movie, like, either way, So journalistically, I think that there are probably a lot of bad things that Graysmith does. Yeah,
which I mean, I guess you can give him some leniency considering that he's not a journalist.
Exactly.
But I mean, it's I don't know. The weird thing that I also found too is like kind of like the relationship between Avery and Graysmith, where like Paul Avery just like immediately trusts Robert Graysmith when it comes to like anything that he has to say about the Zodiac. He's like, "Oh, like, how did you know he wasn't going to give his name?" It's like, you're a genius. I must work with you on this next, you know. I guess it is kind of. I think it is kind of gradual, where he's like, he's going to write again. He's not going to give his name, and then he's right both times, you know. And then I don't know. I think that I like their relationship a lot in the movie. I think it kind of ends very fast. Yeah. To me, at least, I think it ends very fast. Well, the thing is, too, and like going back to like the time thing, it's like I don't think I ever realized how much time goes by because they get into the jumps very quickly. It's 2, you know, 4 years, a year and a half, 2 years, 4 years. They go by very quickly, and the movie is still very long. Yeah. But it's just it's literally just like. It puts you in the moment. It's like putting you in the moment of like having all the information in front of you. Yeah. But you don't have the same, you know, wear and tear of memory where it's like, oh, you know, people could forget about this, and basically trying to do the same thing as the book. Did they how did Fincher? They optioned the book, or somebody optioned the book a long time ago and wrote like a really long screenplay, and Fincher actually Fincher was going to do a Black Dahlia movie, but it fell through. And then he was sent that screenplay, and then they made the movie, which I'm glad, because I think it's a more interesting story. Yeah. But I don't know. I think that journalistically,
I think it has a lot to say about business ethics in the journalism world,
Yeah.
about how you go about a story for safety purposes, because that's a part of it. Because at least in my opinion, I remember we watched a movie in journalism. The movie's called Veronica Guerin. Did you ever see that movie?
Who was in that?
Kate Blanchett. It's like about an Irish journalist who just specifically endangers herself like throughout the whole movie and her family. And I'm like, that's just unethical for a journalist, period.
Yeah.
And I don't believe it's true. That's the reason I'm like...
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I can be okay with that in a movie because it's like, it has to be somewhat exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody wants to watch a movie about, working an actual crime beat where it's just like talking to the information officer and being like, oh, what happened? And he's like, oh, car crash. Oh, okay.
I guess Spotlight was kind of like that.
Yeah, but, that was very boring as well.
Spotlight is very boring.
But the thing is, it's like Spotlight, it also brings up ethical dilemmas of, like, what to publish and what not to publish. Mm-hmm. And this movie also does the same thing. But I think this movie had, like, one of the... I would want to believe, maybe, I don't know, I wasn't back around in, the 70s, early 60s, or late 60s, where it's... I think this movie probably had the least accurate, like, editorial meeting. Oh,
yeah.
I mean,
it's very stereotypical of like what you would imagine as like an editorial. Everybody's swearing.
Yeah.
Everybody's kind of weird looking.
It did get it had very deep, like, All the President's Men vibes.
Yes. Yeah.
Where it's like the heads of the table are kind of just like sitting
club.
in a room, smoking, being like,
let's get a drink later.
What's on page 4 today? Blah blah blah.
Yeah. Which I'm sure that really did happen because it can't like just exist without some basis in reality. But it's very typical of like what you would expect for like a newsroom in a movie set in 1969.
And it just like points out like just how different everything is now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's like editorial meetings are like literally like some people I would imagine probably don't even have that many editorial meetings.
No.
Where it's just because one, daily papers are becoming less and less exist, and then like two, everything probably is just at this point. It's literally just an editorial meeting is a Microsoft Excel sheet.
Yeah, it's like a budget meeting. Yeah. I love that scene in the first budget meeting in the movie when Graysmith hands the editor his cartoons. Yeah. He's like, terrible, terrible, not terrible. Go with the not terrible. Yeah, I love that one. Yeah. But yeah, with with Avery and Tashi. That scene, or the whole interaction with the first murder, when Tashi figures out that there actually might have been an earlier murder in 1965 that could be Zodiac, and he reports on it and doesn't tell the police. It's strange because I don't really understand why I understand why he's upset, but like the ethical part of me is like, people should like know about that.
Yeah.
Right?
I would, I think if I was in the same situation, I think there is a reasonable way that you could probably do both at the same time in contacting the authorities with the information you have and writing the story at the same time, which now that I say that out loud sounds pretty easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But at the, again, the miscommunication and everything like that.
That's exactly, like, I think that's really, that just adds to it. Like, with the same thing with the communication between police departments, the same thing happens between police and reporters.
Yeah.
Whereas, and also just like the resistance to allow Graysmith to like work on the case.
Yeah.
When nobody else is working on it, the case is dead.
Yeah.
All Graysmith wants to do is get information to put it all together.
Yeah.
And they're like, you can't do this, you're a civilian, you're not allowed to do this.
Yeah.
When really all he wants to do is help.
Yeah. And I think they try to like, I think
they do help him.
They do help him, but a big thing that they push to is like, ugh, you're just a cartoonist.
You're a cartoonist, yeah.
What do you know? Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, I solved one of the ciphers. Huh.
Yeah.
And they go and they're like, oh, okay,
fine.
Take whatever you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, the other thing, too, is, like, the other interesting thing is like when he's at Vallejo and they let him into, like, the files or whatever, and they're like, you can't write anything down.
Can't write anything down.
Can't, don't take any pictures, don't write anything down. And then, like, he has to, like, run to a diner.
Just write down really fast,
on a napkin.
Yeah. I think it's really just, to me, the big point of it is that time is terrifying.
Yes.
It makes people forget everything. not only forget information, but forget that they're supposed to care about it.
Yeah, and another good thing that it does too is like going along with time. It just it does such a great job with just the minute detail of police work, especially back then, where it's like the warrant to get into Avery's trailer.
Yes,
or not Avery's trailer, but Arthur Lee Allen's trailer, and it's like every other cop movie is literally they just kind of kick in the door, and it's like, oh, we found everything, and then it's like, but you didn't have a warrant. Whereas this does the correct order, where it's like, oh, we have to get a warrant first.
Get reasons to get a warrant.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, we don't have enough for a warrant. Yeah, that's why I think Fincher is just the best ever with cop procedurals.
Yeah,
ever. I don't know if you watched Mindhunter or not.
I did. I watched the first season. Yeah,
like it's the best. It's the best, and like ever. Like I can't think of anyone who's like better at making it like look good with like actually funny things happen.
Yeah,
and, like and scary. And there's just nobody better at it in my opinion. I think Seven is the best example.
The other another good contrast too is like the contrast between like the police interviewing Arthur Lee Allen and then Robert Graysmith interviewing the one lady in the prison.
Oh yeah.
And literally like the police are like very like kind of casual, whereas like Robert Graysmith was like, it was Rick Marshall.
It's Rick Marshall. Say it. Yeah.
Say it.
But also at that point, he's like at his wit's end. He's like questioning everything. He's confused. He's frustrated. It was Rick Allen. It was Rick Marshall. Yeah.
No, it was Lee.
It was Lee.
Doesn't even sound anything like Rick.
Yeah.
She said it's like it was a nickname.
It was a nickname like Scott or something. And
oh no!
Like,
it was Lee.
And he's like, oh, Arthur Lee Allen. Perfect. That is probably my favorite scene probably in the movie is when he runs to
Tashi's house.
When he runs to Tashi's house in the rain. He's like, it was him. It's Arthur Lee Allen. He made a mistake. And he puts the thing on the door and he's like, look,
he was born
December 18th. Yeah.
The other funny one too, we talked about this right before he came down here, was just like every time like Tashi is woken up.
Yeah, when he wakes up.
The first time he knocks over his lamp, and he's talking to his partner, he's like, all right, well, you pick me up. He's like, hold on, let me just describe the lamp that you're going to buy for me.
Yeah.
The other one is when the scene that you just described, and Robert Grayson's pounding on his door. He's like, I'm going to kill him.
I'm going to kill him. Where's my gun? Where's my gun? Yeah. No, I think really the reason this movie works beyond like just having really smart and interesting like themes about journalism and stuff, I think is just because Fincher is just the best at like making scenarios that are very realistic and detailed, with just really fun movie characters. Yeah, because ultimately there's so many just like great characters.
And that's the other the other one too is like Tashi's character. It's like I feel like there are times when like he wants to be like the the badass cop.
He wants to be Dirty Harry.
Yeah. And then it ties in after he sees Dirty Harry and everything. He like writes the letters to the one whoever it is that works at the Chronicle has like a character that's based
Harry
off him.
Kane or something.
Yeah, and he like writes an email or not an email, but he writes letters to him, and then is accused of writing the other Zodiac letter.
He gets fired, or if he gets kicked off of homicide.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like the three main guys in the movie being Dave Tashi, Paul Avery, and Robert Graysmith are just like the perfect leads that you would need, because it's the three. It's really like the three,
just three factions,
the three people that are really like the three things that are really involved in something like a serial killer, which would be the public, i.e. Graysmith, the police, and journalism with Avery and Tashi. And it really just, it works like so perfectly as like going through all the range of emotions that each of those factions would go through.
Yeah.
I.e. like just trying to forget about it.
Yeah.
Not being able to really forget about it, being tortured by it in Avery's case, which I think is what the implication is.
I think the idea is that like it's ruined his career basically.
Yeah, tortured by it in Avery's case, just kind of trying to forget about it in Tashi's case, and trying to solve it.
Yeah,
basically, hopefully.
And that, I mean, like, it's perfect because, like, I think, like, really, if you look at it, the only people that are really that interested in it anymore is the public.
Yeah,
because it's just like that craving of like, oh, I need to know.
Yeah, I need to know. And I love that scene when he's talking to his wife, and he's like, she said, why do you need to know? He's like, I need.
There's no other explanation. It's just like I need
to know who he is. Yeah, and I think it's probably just that in his personality being like super into puzzles, and it's like the greatest puzzle ever, when really
the most dangerous puzzle
is humans. The most dangerous puzzle.
The most dangerous game. I knew I had heard that before.
Man is the most dangerous animal.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there anything else?
I don't really think I have any. I had like very Deep Throat-esque with the dark, ominous meetings with sources. And
Yeah, I love that the implication is that the Zodiac Killer is a movie buff.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, it's perfect. It makes perfect sense to me. As like somebody who really likes movies, just a serial killer is into movies, of course.
Literally just like the way that you would put it now is just like, oh yeah, he always watched like snuff films and stuff like that. And the only thing that you could watch back then that was a snuff film was The Most Dangerous Game.
The Most Dangerous film. It's silent film.
A silent film.
Yeah.
And there was other things too that I just found to be like the television call-in scene. Mm-hmm. This was the first time I noticed it was when I was watching it again, and like I don't know if this is probably I would imagine, but like the microphones that they were using, they were lapel microphones, but they were literally just necklaces.
Yeah, their necks around their necks.
It was I'd never seen that before, and I thought that was very amusing. Yeah, the other thing too that I just had a bunch of stuff about the cinematography, which I thought was really, classic.
It's just a masterpiece, really, like visually.
It's like you can tell it's like it's very similar to, at least a couple of scenes are very similar. The lighting to The Social Network,
yes,
where it's like that kind of like yellow,
orange,
hueish.
Yes.
The lot of shots, because it's all, I would say, a majority of the movie takes place at
nighttime. Yeah.
And then there's a couple of scenes where it's like the classic, Fincher pan and track and zoom. Like the one shot I can remember that's in my head right now is when they get the first letter that he called himself the Zodiac in, and it's literally just a track and a zoom into the paper on the desk, and it's like, this is the Zodiac speaking, which he's not speaking, he's writing.
Idiot.
And then like the description that they give of the Zodiac, like every single like person that they interview is like, the one that was really funny was like when they talked to the people that knew Paul Avery. He's like, yeah, he misspells words like that. He thinks it's funny.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's totally something I can see like a legitimate psychopath serial killer finding funny. It's like misspelling Friday with a Y instead of an I.
I think the weird thing is you never, I guess it's not weird, it's unnerving in the movie. You never see, because Arthur Lee Allen at this point for me is just the prime suspect, and he still is.
Yeah.
But you never see him be like weird.
No, yeah.
You never see him be weird. He's like a normal, he acts like a normal person. He acts like a good person. And like, but then you hear like, he's a pedophile. Like he was arrested for fondling children.
Yes.
He like, you go to his trailer and he's like, squirrels everywhere, and he has dead squirrels in the fridge. He has a gun.
Yeah,
he's weird. He's weirdo. And he talks to his friend.
Yeah, I'm surprised they've never really gone into like the whole like split personality thing with it.
Yeah, well they kind of do, because they say that he takes on a different personality, and that's why he writes with his left hand.
That's probably true.
Yeah. But that's just what he's like.
Yeah,
because his friend was talking about how his friend says that he talked about all the things that the Zodiac talked about in the letter, about like killing children off buses, and he went skin diving where the couple was killed at the lake.
Yeah,
it's a very frustrating movie. As I said.
And like that's kind of what I've always seen in that last scene with Graysmith and Arthur Allen is like, that's what I've always seen is like when they lock eyes. I think that's when in my eyes, that's when you see like the switch.
Yeah.
And it's
okay.
Because you just see his like face, Arthur Lee, you see his face kind of just drop, and it's just like, he turns into the Zodiac.
I get it now. Yeah, that makes sense. It's very, I mean, it's a great movie, and it's if you haven't seen it, obviously we recommend it. But I would really, especially if you're a journalism student or you're interested in long format stuff, I would recommend.
It's like, I think it's like the perfect movie for like movie buffs.
It's a perfect movie for crime
that
fans.
Are journalism students.
Yeah, and journalism students. Yeah, it's pretty much perfect. I mean, really, there's nothing really. I can't really think of anything wrong with it. The only thing I probably would have a problem with is, it seems like Bob Vaughn goes nowhere.
Yeah, that's the only thing. It's like the whole Bob Vaughn, Rick Marshall thing
goes nowhere. But other than that, I really think it's almost near perfect. And
I think I mean, I kind of understand why they do it because it's just like it could literally be anybody.
Yeah, it's just adding to that pile of doubt that happens at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
That scene at the end is like still the best scene. When
it's just unnerving enough where it's like, oh wait, are you saying that?
Because he doesn't say I'm 100%.
8 out of 10.
At the end of the film, they have the surviving victim from the first attempted killing on July 4th, 1969 point out of a lineup. He points out Arthur Lee Allen, and he says he's 80% sure that it's Arthur Lee Allen. Not 100% sure, not even 90. He's 80% sure that it's Arthur Lee Allen. And it's perfect because it's like...
But it's like his face is like... His face says that's 100, but he's like...
But he's, I don't know.
8 out of 10.
It could be. Yeah, it's perfect. It adds perfectly to, like, nobody really knows. And then, of course, Arthur Lee Allen dies right before they get to do the investigation. Ooh, yeah, it's very scary. It's a very scary movie. It's perfect. The score is great.
Yes.
All the people in it are great. It's a great movie for journalists. Yeah, I think that's probably it.
Do you have any idea what you're going to watch next?
I don't know. I think doing what was it that you said to do next?
I said you should do The Insider.
I think The Insider would be perfect because I think it's in the same vein as a near masterpiece.
Or do you want to kind of... You know what I think what you might be a good theme to do is kind of like watch one that's really good.
And watch one that's bad?
Watch this like completely crap on...
What's a bad one?
Bad just a bad journalism. Like, it doesn't have to be a movie, but like a show.
A show?
Like a season of a show. Like, that's what I say is you should have done American Vandal.
Yeah, I have to see it.
It's not really... It's journalism ethics, but it's like they're making...
It's a documentary.
They're making a documentary.
Doing the ethics. Actually, I was thinking about that because that would actually make for the show to go longer. Because there's a limited amount, but there's kind of unlimited documentaries that you could just critique the ethics of the documentary.
Yeah, because I mean, it really is.
That's what it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, we could do that next. We could do something bad. I just have to find something that I think is bad, or at least questionably ethical. Or
I think the idea would just be to find the movie that you could just raise the most questions about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're just like, no, that's not how you do things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I also really like The Insider, and I love Al.
Great movie.
So I don't know. I have to find some other guest.
I would say like I don't know. You said like you're having your limits as to like know all the President's Men.
It's not all the President's Men. It's not that. It's just that I really think I've talked it to death in classes, and everybody already knows that. So I think that doing it would be boring.
I think the way that you would probably have to do it is like just watch it and then just do like everything wrong.
Everything wrong.
Everything journalistically wrong.
Because it's the journalism movie. Yeah. Because it's the journalism story. Same with Spotlight.
Yeah. It's the new wave.
It's the new So I don't know. It's not never. It's just I don't.
Not for a while.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in The Insider and this movie anyway. So
yeah. I had watched The Insider in class.
So did I.
Yeah.
I watched it in journalism and movies and in some other class.
Oh, I never took journalism movies.
I did enjoy that class.
Partially because of who taught it.
You're right. Yeah. Well, unless you have anything else.
I don't think I have anything else. I'll try and find some more movies and other forms of media to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what would be another good one? Well, I don't know. It's kind of a sports one, but it's not necessarily a show or a movie. It's like a YouTube series that SB Nation did. Well, no, I probably wouldn't.
Okay.
Never mind. It's good if you're interested in watching it. It's about like the rivalry between Ole Miss and Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And
it's a documentary.
It's kind of like it's a documentary format. And it kind of like goes into like the unethical, not necessarily unethical, but just the conspiracy behind college recruiting and like how like every college basically pays people to play for their team in some form.
Yeah.
But just not
allowed actually.
It's not allowed.
Do that. Yeah.
And then it goes into like how Hugh Freeze was fired from Ole Miss for calling prostitutes on his school phone.
Okay, well, I'll have to check it out.
I don't know if you'd be interested in that though. But
Okay.
I don't know. Interesting.
All right. Thank you for listening. If you did listen, we appreciate it. And once again, my name is Vaughn Cockayne here with Max Marko, talking about Zodiac for the first episode of Journalism in the Movies. And we'll see you next time.